In my past life, I was run over by my husband's mistress while she was driving and died on the spot. However, my husband signed a letter of reconciliation as a family member of the victim and forgave the murderer. They moved into my house, took over my property, ruined my reputation, and blackmailed my parents. These people did not stop until they drained me completely, even after my death. But in this life, I swear to make them pay for everything. All the sins of the past will be avenged in this lifetime. I returned to the 5th year of our marriage. As expected, my husband's first love, Vivien, appeared in his life again, bringing her son, Thomas, with her. She wept pitifully, weakly leaning on my husband's shoulder. Hinting transparently that she was in a desperate situation, she pleaded for me to transfer the newly purchased house in a prestigious school district to her son. Sister, I wanted to keep this secret forever and disappear with Thomas so as not to interfere with you and Vincent. But now my son needs to go to school, and I feel guilty as a mother for not being able to afford a house, she said with her usual tone of false remorse. But I remained calm. Vincent, however, looked at Vivien with guilt in his eyes while pretending to be in a difficult position. Miranda, I am his biological father and have not taken care of him since birth. Now he is starting primary school, and our new house is located in the perfect school district. Let's transfer it to Thomas first. I clearly remembered how this played out in my past life. Back then, I angrily threw them out of the house and immediately filed for divorce. There was no deep emotional connection between me and Vincent, and I rationally decided to at least reclaim my property. However, I later discovered that he had been deceiving me all along. Together with my most trusted assistant, he secretly transferred all the assets that originally belonged to our joint property. Only then did I realize that Vivien had never really disappeared from his life. Vincent just didn't want to let go of either me, the wife who could advance his career, or the woman who had given birth to his son. It turned out that our first meeting was a carefully orchestrated trap. If it weren't for me, Vincent would still be an unknown worker. It was my money and efforts that helped us start a small company, which eventually became a thriving business. I poured my heart and soul into it, working tirelessly to secure contracts. Meanwhile, he was indulging in the arms of another woman. In the end, they even conspired to get rid of me. Remembering the pain my parents suffered as they buried their child, I suppressed my rage and maintained a facade of detached amusement. Recently, our company failed to win a major project, causing financial difficulties. I have already put the house up for sale. If we don't secure this contract, the losses will be in the tens of millions, I stated calmly. Vivien's expression darkened immediately. What do you mean? How could you sell the house without discussing it with Vincent first? If that happens, Thomas won't be able to attend a good school. He has to go to Harvard. Do you even understand the consequences of your actions? Thomas, who had been playing on the side, noticed his mother's worried expression and glared at me viciously. Woman! Mom said everything that belongs to my dad is mine by right. He muttered before running over and pushing me. Then he snuggled into Vincent's arms, throwing a tantrum. Seeing his beloved son lose his temper, Vincent's heart softened. Why did you make such an important decision on your own? You should have discussed it with me first, he said, pretending to be upset. Then in a lower voice he added, besides, if you don't have money, you can borrow it. Your parents have a big company. Surely they have extra funds. If that's not enough, you can ask your girlfriends for a loan first. I looked at him coldly. So this was his true face. When he was poor, he obeyed me in everything. Now that he had some money, he had taken on a mistress and an illegitimate child. Clearly, he had gone so long without looking in the mirror that he no longer recognized his own worth. Without me, Miranda, he is nothing. I sneered and looked at my husband with contempt. Vincent, I've already invested the money from selling the house into the project. If I pull it out now, the losses will amount to tens of millions. If you're ready to bear the consequences, then fine, I have no objections. I don't care, he snapped. You have to find a way. Or at least use your connections to get Thomas into a good school. Don't you have a friend who teaches there? You know a child's future can't be delayed. Realizing there was no hope of getting the money back, my husband changed tactics and tried to persuade me instead. He even pulled me aside and whispered, Honey, don't worry. There's no way I'll get back together with Vivien. But Thomas is my son. I can't ignore that. If you help him get into a good school now, I'll take him in later. You two can build a relationship, and in time, he'll become your own child. I narrowed my eyes and remained silent. Thinking he had convinced me, he continued. Don't you want children? Well, here's one, ready-made. In a few years, he'll see you as his mother. Isn't that the best of both worlds? His self-satisfied tone almost made me laugh. Did he really think I was foolish enough to raise someone else's child? You haven't even taken a paternity test, yet you're so sure he's yours? I asked. And besides, did you hear how he just called me a bad woman? Why should I believe he'll change? If I wanted to raise a child, I'd go to an orphanage and adopt one I actually like. My husband's face darkened. Thomas looks exactly like I did as a child, he argued. A test isn't necessary. And an orphan is not the same. It's always better to raise your own child. I curled my lips into a mocking smile and slowly clapped my hands. You said it yourself, a child that's not your own can't be tamed. So why do you think I would raise your illegitimate son? My husband was left speechless, his expression turning ugly. At that moment, Vivien stepped in. Vincent, it's all my fault, she said tearfully. I'm so sorry. You mustn't argue with your wife because of me and our son. I should have taken Thomas and left long ago. If it weren't for his future, she covered her face, pretending to cry. Her tactic worked perfectly. My husband immediately felt sorry for her. Vivien, this isn't your fault, he reassured her. Don't worry, I'll take care of getting our son into a good school. He deserves the best education. Yes, Vincent, thank you, she cooed, leaning against him with a helpless dependent look. Watching this pathetic pair, I felt sick. If you two want to put on a romantic drama, go outside and turn left. There's a hotel 100 meters away, I said coldly. Don't pollute my house with your presence. Otherwise, I might not be able to resist taking out the trash. My husband glanced at the soft, charming Vivien in his arms, then back at me, cold and unyielding. The scales in his mind visibly tipped. Honey, I thought you'd understand me. I didn't expect you to be so harsh, like those shrews outside. Just listen to yourself. Why can't you be gentler? With your spoiled princess attitude, who else but me would put up with you? I chuckled. Right, I'm a shrew. I sincerely hope you find a generous fool who won't mind that you have a mistress and an illegitimate child. Don't worry. I'll send you the divorce papers tomorrow. Now, you can have your happy little family reunion. I raised my hand and called for the housekeeper. Aunt Yun, please show our guests out. If I walk out of this house today, I won't come back, even if you beg me in the future. My husband snapped, humiliated in front of the housekeeper. I couldn't help but laugh inwardly. The only reason he dared to test my limits so recklessly was because he thought he had already taken my company and assets. But what if I got everything back? I couldn't wait to see his furious, desperate face.
The next day, I sent the divorce agreement that I had prepared long ago to Vincent. Then I came to the company early to wait for the good show. I knew that today Vincent would show his true colors. He would use the shares that he had transferred away to force me, the chairperson of the board, to step down. In my previous life, I was caught off guard like this and he took my power away. This time, let's see how I turn the tables on him. In the office, I was leisurely sipping the Biluacun tea sent by a client. It was indeed good tea. Once it entered my mouth, its fragrance lingered on my lips and teeth. President Miranda, President Vincent is coming over with those old fogies on the board of directors. They said they want to hold a new election for the chairperson of the board. Mia, my newly promoted assistant, hurriedly opened the office door. She rushed in, panting. I calmly opened my eyes and my gaze rested on the Chanel watch on my left wrist. The hour hand was exactly pointing at 10 o'clock. Let's go. And you follow too. Let's see how blind you are. You wanted to find a new backer but chose such a useless one. I stood up, propping myself up. I signaled my former assistant, Chloe, to follow as well. She cowered and said, "Okay, President Miranda." Before I even walked into the conference room, I saw that it was crowded with people. Well, Vincent had been waiting for this day for 5 years. He thought he had victory in his hands. President Vincent, don't worry. This time we will surely support you to take this position. In my opinion, We shouldn't have let that little girl be in charge in the first place. Women are always short-sighted. How could they understand the twists and turns in our men's business world? This company should be run by men. How could such a big enterprise listen to a woman? The one who spoke was Alexander, an old shareholder of the company. How could such a big enterprise listen to a woman? The one who spoke was Alexander, an old shareholder of the company. He was an old man in his 60s, retired at home and enjoying his grandchildren. The company gave him generous dividends every month. He was enjoying the money I earned while looking down on me behind my back. Haha, Alexander, you know that Miranda has a rather strong personality. Since we got married, she has been in charge of everything in both our family and the company. Alas. Actually, I don't want to be the chairperson of the board at all. If it weren't for the problems with the company's major projects now, I wouldn't want to take on this responsibility in a time of crisis. But I know that if our company wants to achieve good development, we can't let Miranda continue to mess around. Vincent put on an aggrieved look, and his words were all about my being unreasonable and his thoughtfulness. He packaged himself as a perfect husband. I must say, President Vincent, you are really a model among us men. You take care of your family, don't fool around, and are successful in your career. President Miranda must have saved the Milky Way in her previous life to find a husband as good as you. If you weren't already taken, any one of us who has a daughter would want to introduce her to you. Yes. President Vincent. I'm really relieved to hand over our company to you in the future. With you leading us, I believe our company will become better and reach a new level. Several people beside him also started to compliment Vincent one after another. Good words were pouring out like they didn't cost anything. Vincent was enjoying this sense of superiority of being praised by everyone and was getting a bit carried away. Today doesn't seem to be a regular board meeting. What are you all? Having watched enough of the show, I interrupted everyone's conversation. Miranda, today Mr. Young and the others discussed with me and wanted to hold a board meeting to discuss the future development trend of the company. Vincent saw me leaning casually against the door, with a half-smile on my face. He walked over with a smile. Daniel, who had been promoted by Vincent all the way, also echoed his words. As the grandson of James, a major director of the company, this guy didn't have half of his grandfather's vision. By now, he had already become one of Vincent's followers. I saw that most of the directors below were expressing their approval one after another, while only a few were objecting. I say, Daniel, how long have you been in the company? Do you know that this company was founded single-handedly by President Miranda? If it hadn't been for her foresight in winning one core project after another back then, could our company have grown and expanded? At the moment when he reached out his hand towards me, I took a step back. Don't touch me. I think you're dirty. Vincent's face darkened when he saw that I didn't give him face in public. On the surface, however, he pretended to speak in a gentle tone. Miranda, I know you're throwing a little tantrum, but so many people are waiting for you. Don't make a fuss. I was too lazy to pay attention to the smears against me in his words. In my opinion, if you want my position, you should compete with me with real achievements, rather than playing tricks behind my back and stabbing me in the back. I ignored him and stepped aside to walk to the main seat and sat down. Didn't we say we were going to have a meeting? Let's start. Vincent gloomily glanced at the deputy director beside him. The deputy director, Oliver, took a pile of documents and distributed them to everyone present one by one. These are the financial statements of our company every year since its establishment and some major projects. Our company has developed from a small startup into a large group today, and behind this is the painstaking efforts of all our colleagues. The opinion of the directors is that we have been losing money on projects this year, so we want to elect a new chairman. I tapped on the table and asked casually, do you want to remove me and elect a new chairman? President Miranda, I know you have worked hard and achieved a lot for the company in the past few years, but our company can't keep losing money because of some of your personal decisions. I admit that you do have personal abilities, but you are too autocratic. You're gambling with the interests of all of us. Alexander took the lead and was the first to question me. Yes, President Miranda. Besides, we're just electing a new chairman. You can still lead your original management team independently. A good manager should know how to appoint people on their merits. Besides, the new director we want to elect is none other than your husband, President Vincent. Everyone has seen that President Vincent has worked hard for our company in the past few years and has made many good achievements. How could we get so many dividends every year? Now that the company's development is on the right track, you're like getting rid of the millstone after the grind. Vincent is just a freeloader. You still fantasize that he can lead you to make a fortune. William was a shareholder whom I had personally visited and persuaded for a long time. What he valued when he was willing to invest in the company was my ability. Seeing a bunch of directors forcing me at this moment, he stood up righteously. In my previous life, when I was forced step by Vincent and the others, it was William who firmly stood by my side. However, in the end, he was squeezed out by other directors and lost his shares. This time, I will repay his kindness. I gave William a reassuring look to calm him down. For example, tell me what achievements Vincent has made. Daniel was instantly embarrassed. Of course, he didn't know what achievements Vincent had made. It was just empty talk. He didn't expect that I would question him so seriously. Miranda, why do you have to make things difficult for Daniel like this? I wouldn't say anything if you were like this at home usually, but the company is not the place for you to throw tantrums. Vincent and Vivien really deserved to be a pair. Their words were becoming more and more hypocritical. I just asked him to give an example. How did I make things difficult for him? Did I hold a knife to his neck? Or did I pick on him for no reason? My communication with him is normal. It's you who jumped out to accuse me for no reason. Are you so eager to sit in the chair of the chairman? Embarrassed by my sarcasm, Vincent couldn't save face. He took out the share transfer agreement from his bag. Miranda, you transferred all the shares to me. Isn't it that you want me to be the chairman? Don't worry. I won't let everyone down. I will develop and expand our company well. I narrowed my eyes to look at the transfer agreement handed over. Since the transfer agreement has even been signed, then what are we waiting for? President Vincent will be the next chairman. We can just announce it and put the seal on it. Old Mr. Young took the lead to take the contract and check it and then announced it to the others with a beaming face. Vincent raised his head, looking like a petty person who had achieved his ambition. He almost stretched his neck out of shape. I interrupted, "Oh, I don't remember signing such a contract." Vincent was very confident and didn't look at me. He just replied in a muffled voice, "Miranda, I know you're angry with me because I didn't have time to accompany you a couple of days ago. You signed this contract yourself last week and gave it to me. If you don't believe me, you can ask your assistant Chloe. She knows it very well." I turned to look at Chloe. She was already shaking with fear. It was a showdown between the new master and the old master, but the spearhead was all pointed at her. It would be strange if she wasn't scared to death. She hunched her shoulders and almost knelt down. "President Miranda, I don't know where President Vincent got this contract from. You've never signed such a contract." Vincent was stunned. He didn't expect that the person he had managed to bribe could turn against him. "Obviously, you took this contract to Miranda to sign. How can you deny it? Then we'll verify the handwriting. What's written in black and white has legal effect." At the critical moment, Vincent's IQ was still online. He knew that under his elaborate trap, I must have signed it. Immediately, he was about to find someone to verify it. "Look, this name doesn't seem to be President Miranda's." William took the transfer agreement and looked at it a few times. Of course. I knew at that time that only my autograph could make Vincent fall for it. I signed my former name, Eliza. But the share subscription of the company used my current name, Miranda. There were just a few strokes different, but it could make this contract a worthless piece of paper. How is it possible? Vincent didn't believe it and snatched the transfer agreement over. Seeing the three flamboyant characters Eliza at the signature place, he completely went crazy. He stared at me with wide eyes and said, "You did it on purpose, didn't you? You knew it all along, you wicked woman." I smiled and said, "No one is as wicked as you. You plotted against your own wife. The farce ends here today. My secretary Mia will discuss the matter of share repurchase with several directors later. Since you don't recognize my management style, our company is very humane and will buy back the shares in your hands at a high price so that you won't suffer losses." Those who had been jumping up and down to make Vincent the chairman were so scared that they didn't dare to say a word. "Well, President Miranda. Actually, we didn't really want to change the chairman. We were forced to come here today by President Vincent. Please be magnanimous and don't hold it against us." "Yes, President Miranda. All of this is President Vincent's conspiracy. We were deceived by him." Seeing that the situation was not right, of course, they didn't want to hand over the shares in their hands. After all, the company's business was booming and its market value was getting higher year by year. Who wouldn't want to make money without much effort? But I wasn't going to give these fence-sitters any chance. I gave Mia a look, and she asked the security guards to come in and see Vincent and the other directors out. I watched the amounts of money constantly being credited to my mobile phone one by one. Paying someone back in their own coin. I wondered how Vincent was feeling now. "President Miranda, I've already intercepted the company's accounts that were illegally transferred out before. They will be transferred back one by one in the next 2 days. Besides, I've already submitted the signed version of the divorce agreement between you and President Vincent to the lawyer." After making a phone call, Mia reported the progress to me in detail. "Vincent, you can only blame yourself for being too clever for your own good. You thought that all the funds had been transferred out, so you didn't hesitate to sign the divorce agreement with me. Now, he's really become a penniless wretch. I'd like to see if Vivien will still stay with you without hesitation now that you have no money." With my taking back the power and controlling the money, Vincent certainly wouldn't let it go easily. Before long, he would bring Vivien and Thomas to linger at my doorstep every day. "Miranda, you're so vicious. You set such a big trap for me to fall into. Now you've driven me out with nothing. Are you satisfied?" Having not seen each other for several days, Vincent no longer had the appearance of a decent gentleman as before. His suit was wrinkled and his face was haggard. He immediately stood up from the ground when he saw me. Vivien, who was standing beside him, held Thomas tightly and said arrogantly, "Vincent has half of the property rights to this house. You have no right to drive us away." She really had no sense of propriety at all. I walked around them and opened the combination lock. Not wanting to pay attention to them, I tried to close the door as soon as I entered. But Vincent pressed it with one hand, his face distorted. "I've consulted a lawyer. Now that I have no job, according to our current salaries, whether you like it or not, you need to pay me alimony every month. And I have no house to live in now, so you must also give me a house." I was a bit surprised. Vincent's mind was still sharp. No wonder he could plot against me even in my previous life. I still didn't give in. "You're a grown man with hands and feet. Aren't you afraid of being laughed at by others if you ask a woman like me for alimony?" Vincent snorted coldly. "What's the use of face? As long as I can get the money, I don't care. I have a way to make you beg me in the end. Just wait and see." Finally, I closed the door, but I felt uneasy in my heart, seeing Vincent acting so recklessly now. Things had indeed become thorny. I didn't want to be harassed by him every day either. It seemed that I had to implement that plan as soon as possible. These days, Vincent either squatted at my home or ran to the downstairs of the company to hold up banners. He had completely thrown away his dignity. He went to my competitors to play the victim. He said that after being married to me for so many years, I didn't show any mercy. He claimed that even if he didn't have any merits, he had at least put in a lot of hard work. But I drove him out of the house with nothing, not leaving him a penny. In the face of my accusation of his extramarital affair, he publicly admitted in the media that Thomas was his illegitimate son. But he said that his first love, Vivien, gave birth to the child without telling him and that he really didn't know about it beforehand. He wept bitterly in public and showed sincere repentance. He portrayed himself as a repentant who had realized his mistakes and turned back. For a while, public opinion began to shift in his favor. To be honest, I think the woman is too harsh. Just because the man has an illegitimate son, she drove her husband out of the house with nothing, not even giving him a place to live. What's more, the child was secretly born by his first love, and the man didn't know about it before. He's also a victim. I heard that the woman is an iron lady in business and has always been profit-oriented. I heard that people in their circle don't have a good opinion of her. She can go to any lengths for money when dealing with other companies. Yes, I heard from insiders of the company that she always makes decisions according to her own will and never listens to the opinions of other directors. Because the man came from a poor background, he couldn't get promoted in the company after being married for many years. Alas. In my opinion, you shouldn't marry a rich girl like her. She's always on guard against you as if you were a thief. No wonder he had an affair. Yes, if I were in his shoes, I would definitely have an affair too. The man is still okay. At least he didn't do anything to let her down during the marriage. I watched the video that was being crazily reposted. In just one day, the number of likes had already exceeded 1 million. My former business rivals took advantage of this divorce turmoil to smear me to the extreme. President Miranda, what should we do? Our company's stock price has been falling since yesterday. If this continues, it will bring inestimable losses. Assistant Mia anxiously handed over the tablet. The financial director Matthew also rushed in hurriedly. President Miranda, now those old guys on the board of directors have been shouting for you to invite President Vincent back to the company and not let him be active in front of the media. He has been saying ambiguous things in public to stir up trouble for our company. Now many trolls are attacking our company's wolfish business philosophy. Let me in. I want to see President Miranda. Don't stop me. The noisy quarreling sounds came from outside. He burst through the office door and walked in menacingly. President Miranda, originally we old guys shouldn't have interfered in the matter of your divorce. But you absolutely shouldn't have used the company as a bargaining chip in your fight. This is simply putting all of our painstaking efforts at risk. Besides, it's okay if you get divorced, but why did you have to be so ruthless and drive your husband into a corner? Now, look what's happened. He's gone to our rivals and attacked us. Old Mr. Young pointed angrily at the computer screen. Look at our company's stock price. We don't even know how much it has dropped in just 2 days. In my opinion, you're simply not capable of running a company well. Those who aim for great achievements don't get bogged down in trifles, but you only care about your own selfish desires and ignore the company's interests. I had just taken back a large number of shares from them a few days ago, and this time old Mr. Young had caught me at a disadvantage. He was sparing no effort to try to bring me down. I was silent for a long time before speaking slowly. Don't worry. I'll handle this matter well and it definitely won't affect the company. Seeing my confident appearance, old Mr. Young was also a bit afraid that I would take revenge on him. He said weakly, you'd better keep your word. As I expected. Before the incident could further escalate, Vincent was the first to call me. Have you thought it over? If you let me return to the company now and divide half of the marital property, oh no, 2/3 of it to me, I'll go and clarify things in front of the media. Otherwise, just wait for the company's stock price to keep dropping. Even if you get the money and shares in the end, what's the use? They'll just be worthless. Vincent, you're really shameless. You even went to our enemies. I retorted sarcastically. There was laughter from the other end of the phone. As long as I can threaten you, there's nothing I won't do. So? Have you made up your mind? I believed that if I let Vincent come back this time, he would definitely try to play tricks and then I could catch him red-handed. Okay, I agree. You can return to the company first and keep your original position. We'll talk about the rest later. But you have to clarify things in public first. Vincent didn't expect that I would agree so easily. He had been prepared to keep arguing with me. What? Don't you want to come back now? No, you're sensible. Just wait and see. As soon as I showed an intention to change my mind, Vincent immediately agreed in a panic. Very good. The fish had taken the bait. Let's see how he was going to dig his own grave. Vincent was really efficient. He held a press conference that very afternoon. He clarified the public opinion on the internet and took the opportunity to announce the notice of his return to the Blue Boat Company. I asked the public relations department to communicate with the media. We used other hot topics to cover up this matter. The company began to get back on track. After Vincent returned, I asked Director Matthew to reassign the projects that he had been in charge of before to him. Seeing that Vincent didn't seem to be in a hurry to compete with me for property, I became even more certain of the gossip I had heard. He came back for the projects and should have reached an agreement with a new company. Well, of course, I was going to put the bait right in front of him. Aren't you short of manpower for the projects? Since President Vincent has come back, let him work with you. Well, is this appropriate? Director Matthew was a bit hesitant. Deep down, he also thought that Vincent had come back with ulterior motives. Don't worry. Everything is under my control. Just do as I say. I raised my hand and patted him on the shoulder to comfort him. I waved my hand to let them go out first. Currently, the whole company was working together with all its strength on the projects. Next week was the bidding day. The whole company was united as one. Vincent was also working diligently for a rare change, not at all like his previous overbearing self. Well, it was just the calm before the dawn. The day after tomorrow is the bidding day. The contract will be as it is now, and the other details will be as I communicated with Director Matthew. Remember, the scale of this project is the largest that our company has ever dealt with. We must succeed and there's no room for failure. I stood on the podium and said to everyone below word by word, "Don't worry, President Miranda. Our department has been working day and night just to win this project. We'll make sure everything is foolproof and win this project back." Director Matthew patted his chest and promised me earnestly, "Okay, everyone take a good rest today and tomorrow, build up your strength and get ready for the big battle the day after tomorrow." Okay. The cold midnight wind in the city made the windows rattle. After taking a shower, I sat on the sofa waiting for news. "President Miranda, just as you expected, I just saw from the surveillance that Vincent sneaked into the office building and turned on my computer and copied away the bidding materials for tomorrow." Opening the new message reminder on WeChat, I learned that Vincent had fallen into the trap. Act according to the plan. After saving the surveillance data, call the police. Heaven has a way but you don't take it. Hell has no door but you barge in. This time I was going to send Vincent to prison. I sat in front of the computer and rechecked the project proposal that I had written myself. The stolen materials were real, and the materials in my hand were also real. It all depended on tomorrow, the next day. In the bidding conference room. When the host announced that our company had successfully won the final bidding right, everyone was almost moved to tears of joy. From the moment Director Matthew went up to give a speech, Vincent's expression gradually became flustered. Haha. He finally realized that the materials he had were wrong. "Miranda, you actually tricked me with fake materials. Well done." The boss of a new company looked livid as he watched the project finally being won by me. "Mr. Wong, it's really thanks to your painstaking efforts in stealing the project proposal. Otherwise, we wouldn't have worked overnight and discovered such a loophole. The Blue Boat Company won't forget your kindness this time." I was in a very good mood and made a rare joke. "You?" The person opposite looked as if he wanted to tear me apart but was helpless. "Excuse me, who is Vincent?" Suddenly there was a commotion at the door. Several policemen in police uniforms showed their IDs and walked in. Vincent didn't have time to escape and was caught. "Vincent, after investigation, we found that you are suspected of stealing the project secrets of the Blue Boat Group. The evidence is conclusive. Now we'll take you into custody." The leading police officer quickly walked up to Vincent, put handcuffs on him, and was about to take him away. "I didn't. Don't you dare to frame me. Help." Vincent kept struggling. He shouted at me, "Miranda, save me. Please tell the police that I didn't steal the company's secrets, right?" I looked at him as if I were watching a clown. "Wasn't it you who stole our project proposal and gave it to a new company? If I hadn't had a backup plan, I would be the one suffering losses today. Why should I help someone who wants to ruin me and the company?" I didn't soften my heart at all and asked him rhetorically, "You didn't suffer any losses either. Why are you so relentless? After all, we were husband and wife. Why are you so ruthless?" Seeing that I remained unmoved, Vincent broke down. I walked towards him, grabbed his chin. "I'm ruthless? What a joke. You had an affair for years. I divorced you, and then you used public opinion to try to bring down my company. I made concessions and allowed you to return to the company, but you didn't repent and sold our company's secrets to our competitors. Tell me, who is more ruthless, you or me? Vincent's eyes dodged. Now that I'm in your hands, you can slander me however you want. Who cares about the truth? I was so angry that I laughed and clapped my hands vigorously. I'm slandering you? You really won't admit your mistakes until you're faced with the consequences. I took out the disc from my bag and handed it to Mia. Today I'll let everyone see your true face, so that you won't be so stubborn. On the big screen, scenes of Vincent's private meetings with Vivien began to play. From the time Thomas was just born, 1 year old, 2 years old, all the way to 6 years old now, Vincent went to see them almost every week. The mother and son were arranged by Vincent to live in Shui Shangyin Yuan. This community was even the house we bought with our first pot of gold back then. And he used it to hide his mistress like this. Oh my God, Vincent is really so heartless. His wife accompanied him to build up their business from scratch, but he had been keeping a mistress and an illegitimate child since the very beginning. And he even had the nerve to shift the blame. What a scumbag. Yes, he looks so decent on the outside, but in fact, he's a bad egg. He's really a disgrace among men. Why are we still wasting words on him? Hurry up and arrest him. That wasn't all. Then the video of Vincent sneaking into Director Matthew's office to steal the project materials last night started playing on the screen. I even managed to get the evidence of Vincent's conspiracy with the boss of a new group. The charge of leaking company secrets was certain. The evidence is conclusive. What else do you have to say? I stared at the distracted Vincent and asked casually. I shouldn't have done this. No, I can't go to prison. Miranda, please, let me go, okay? As long as you let me go, I'll do anything you ask. Vincent knew that as long as I was determined to sue him, then he was bound to go to prison. He knelt down and begged me as if he were grasping the last straw. I felt even more disappointed. A person who didn't even care about his dignity just for freedom. I didn't even know how I was so blind to fall for such a scoundrel back then. Vincent, you've never worked hard properly in your life and have always been obsessed with crooked ways. You should bear the consequences of your mistakes. I don't want to. Let me go. His struggles were in vain. In the end, Vincent was dragged away by the police. We successfully won the project and also managed to fight back against a new group with the help of Vincent's situation. Vincent was sentenced to 10 years in prison because of the large amount of secrets he leaked this time. Considering the bad things he did to me in my previous life, he deserved to be locked up for a lifetime. After he got into trouble, Vivien had long disappeared. This woman didn't even want her own son anymore. Thomas was passed around like a hot potato among Vincent's relatives. No one was willing to raise him. After all, even if Vincent got out of prison in the future, he would be a useless person. Of course, they didn't want to raise his child for him. At first, they wanted to send Thomas to their hometown. Anyway, he was just a kid. As long as he was given something to eat, he could survive. Who knew that as soon as this kid arrived at their homes, he started crying for his father and mother. He even refused to eat ordinary meals. He only wanted to eat good food. He was impatient and couldn't be disciplined. When he was angry, he even dared to bite people. When the other relatives saw this, none of them wanted to take over this hot potato. Finally, there was no other way. Thomas could only be sent to the orphanage. The once overbearing and unreasonable child became timid. Well, after experiencing the cold looks from people around him and the days of sometimes having enough to eat and sometimes going hungry, he was no longer the precious child that Vincent held in his hands. He had already learned to read people's faces, and then, a few months later, there was also news about Vivien. It turned out that she was tricked by a businessman and went to Thailand. At first, the man gave her some benefits. She was lost in the money for a while. She continued to daydream about being a rich lady. She lived a wealthy life for a period of time. Unexpectedly, later the man's wife came to her. I heard that there was a fierce fight and she was driven out directly. And that boss, as soon as he saw something had happened, took some money and dismissed Vivien. He put it nicely, saying that it was all a matter of mutual consent and there was no coercion. I gave you money, and you accompanied me. It was just a mutual exchange between two people. At first, Vivien tried to make a fuss at the man's company and ask for compensation. But she couldn't even get in the door. After all, it was something that everyone knew but didn't talk about. Especially since you're a foreigner. If you weren't willing, could they have forced you to come here? Without a source of income and having been relying on others for half of her life, Vivien had completely lost her ability to work. Later, she was seen by someone with ulterior motives when she was living on the streets. She was introduced to work in the red light district. She became a social butterfly completely. She was doing quite well in the nightlife scene. But he who plays with fire will surely get burned. According to the information brought back by the detective I sent, Vivien, in order to make more money, actually started helping guests with drug deals. After the first time, she became more and more addicted. When she didn't have money to buy drugs, she would exchange by helping others with private drug deals. In less than half a year, drugs had completely eroded her body. She was caught red-handed during a police raid. The evidence of prostitution and drug trafficking was conclusive. In a trance, she was used as a shield by a gangster guest at that time. She was shot dead on the spot. The news was sent back to China. I didn't feel the slightest ripple in my heart. She had no relatives left here long ago. Since Vincent was in prison, there was no one to take care of her affairs after her death. But I didn't pity her at all. After all, in her previous life, she was able to knock someone down and kill them with her car and didn't feel any guilt at all. The reason why she and Vincent ended up like this in the end was that they were too greedy. They coveted things that didn't belong to them. From the very beginning, they coveted to steal the achievements of others by improper means. They regarded human lives as worthless and ignored the law. In the end, they surely had to face the consequences of their own actions. In life, everyone will encounter many temptations. Some people can stick to their original intentions and resist the temptations. They rely on their own efforts to strive for what belongs to them. However, some people are often not satisfied with what they have. They want to reap without sowing and steal the achievements of others. Finally, they have evil thoughts and embark on a road of no return.